It's time for another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And of course, if you regularly check us out on YouTube, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. You can also find us on Facebook at Tar Heel Illustrated, and you may even catch this on Twitter, which is at Heel Illustrated. And I should remind you, for just $8.33 a month, you could be a Carolina Tar Heels insider too and have access to everything we do, not just our podcast. There's so much more intel that you can get if you're a premium subscriber. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of football recruiting, Deana King. And in this daily drop, we're going to dive into a really interesting subject, something that Deana has been monitoring so closely for so long. This is one of the things that I love that she's passionate about and does, and that's Mack Brown's retention rate, his program's retention rate from his recruiting classes. Now, in the portal era, it's a little more difficult maybe to judge a staff on how they keep kids. Remember back in the day, a few years ago, when the pitch was nobody ever transfers out of Roy Williams' program. Then the portal hit and everybody transfers out of every program. So you got to take that a little bit with a grain of salt. So I think this isn't so much conversation about who left, but it's a conversation also about who stayed and who is still around in the program. We're going to go through each of the recruiting classes quickly, give you some specs from that. And Deana, of course, is going to offer all kinds of Miss King perspective on all of this. So Deana, let's go to 2019. 24 signees, Mack's first class. And to preface, there were 13 commitments when he was hired. 6 of those kids were essentially reoffered and were part of the class. 24 signees, 11 left, 11 stayed, 2 were medicals. Sam went to the draft. And 2 of the 4 stars that left were Mack Brown and Josh Henderson. So what sticks out about that class to you?
Well, that was Mack coming in first class, and he had to decide what he wanted. Like you said, Coach Fedora took some commitments from some kids, and they were not reoffered or honored by Coach Brown because when you're coming into a program, you want your type of players. And so I give Coach Brown a high marks on doing what he did in such a short time, coming in like December and with the early signing day and trying to land kids. That class will always be known to me as Sam Howell. That was the signature recruit for Mack, and look what Sam did in his stay at North Carolina. He record breaker. He led them to some really good wins, and he was the cornerstone, the foundation that Mack started at Carolina, landing an in-state kid, and so he built around Sam. So 11 and 11, 46% if you count the 2 medicals. Things happen, kids get hurt and stuff. So and that seems like forever,
I know,
back in 2019 with what all we have had to deal with COVID and all those years and stuff. So, but I think his that class turned out pretty good. I mean, it was a solid group, and they were key, integral players for their bowl wins. That big bowl win against Temple, and playing in the Orange Bowl, and yeah. There's still some good players that came out of that group.
Okay, hold on just a second. I gotta turn my fan on. Kim has been really cold lately, so she turns the heat on, and it's May. So, all right, that fan's good. That'll make a big difference. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Yeah, plus Sam made Carolina a cool place to be. That was Mack's mission. Mack told us that the first press conference. I want to make this a cool place to be. And having a dude like Sam Howell, who is the personification of cool, and a big time producer made Carolina the cool place to be. The residual effect of Sam Howell at UNC is probably very difficult to fully quantify, but he attracted a lot of guys and he generated a ton of attention and he helped the program a lot. And I think part of it is the Drake May effect. Drake May's there in part because of Sam, and Sam did well. And Drake had originally committed to Alabama and he saw what Sam could achieve there. So it made him believe more in the school he really wanted to go to. So I think the Sam Howell effect on the program will be felt even this fall in 2023. The class of 2020, Deana, 25 signees, 9 left, 12 stayed, 4 medical. The medicals were Caden Baker, it was just recent here this past spring, Zimmerman, Ethan West, and we're going to include Tylee Craft in there because of his situation. And if you're a praying type, pray for him because the cancer has spread some, and it's he's an incredibly courageous, inspirational young man. So I would keep him in your prayers if you were someone who definitely does pray. But in that class of 2020, 1 5-star, that was Tony Grimes. He came early. There were 9 4-stars. What's interesting is of those 10 4 and 5 stars, only 4 of them remain. Actually, 3 of them remain now, but 6 of them left. Grimes left. Aquarius Conley just left. Cameron Roseman St. Clair didn't really get on. He did have an interception late in a mop-up game. You have Ray Rose. Remember him? It's been a long time since we said Ray Rose's name. And, of course, Chicago Criswell. And how about Pinder? Clyde Pinder, who left and hit the portal again. The ones that stayed from that group, Des Evans, Miles Murphy, KBJ. These are 3 guys that have all been injured, by the way, and Josh Downs, and he left for the NFL. So your thoughts on 2020?
That class, it was the class that really typified what Mack was trying to build. They were number 12 class in Rivals. He was, they had come off that big Temple win in the bowl, Military Bowl, and so they had a lot of momentum building. A 7-6 season. Okay, guys, this is the cool place to be. They did very well in state recruiting, and that was Mack's pitch. Trying to keep the in-state guys in. Had a top 12 recruiting class, a lot of excitement around the program and the fan base. Like, oh, we're landing, the big 4 stars. And, when Tony reclassed, it even made that class even higher, and that was Mack's first 5-star recruit in, Rivals. I mean, there could have been some other services that had some kids, but Rivals 5-star, Tony Grimes, and everybody was really excited about that group. And you look back, and it was a great group coming in, but you look at
What'd they do?
I mean, Desmond Evans, he is, besides now Josh Downs, All-American.
I think Miles Murphy's been good.
He's done really awesome. Was selected by the Colts in the 3rd round. Miles Murphy has been a really good player up front on the defense. Desmond Evans, we're still kind of waiting for Desmond to have a breakout year, and we were expecting it maybe this past year, but injuries caused him to miss majority of the season. KBJ, he's been battling injuries. Hopefully we see
he's healthy now.
Very healthy KBJ, and will be able to help be a force on that defensive front. So
Deana, Mack said in the spring that, hey, it's time for him to play. It's time for him to, show what he can do. The guys they lost, Grimes played a ton, but I don't think he matched expectations. And it was probably good for the program, but for him to part ways. Conley, unfortunately, had the injury. I think he was on track to be a big-time player, and the injury really it's a very unfortunate story. I hate stuff like that. Roseman Sinclair just never got it going. Ray Rose never got it going. Criswell, we would have known what kind of player it was had Drake gotten hurt, but I think he gets credit for pushing Drake. He gets credit for, I think, being someone that they would have been fully confident in had the staff had to go to him for whatever reason, but he still didn't do much, didn't play much. And then Pinder kind of came and went pretty quickly, and he's already gone from his next program. So, again, for the people who scream and yell and clamor over star rankings, this class is a great example that star rankings don't really mean a whole lot, because who are the two best players from this group? Maybe two of the three best players from this class were three-star guys.
Cedric Gray
and Kamen Rucker. And I'll never forget when Rucker committed, people were like, what the heck is Mack taking this commitment for? And then I talked to Kamen I talked to him on the phone for 45 minutes that night.
We saw it. We saw we were there.
And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. And so the guy, every time I talk to Kamen now, I'm just so impressed with so many things about him. And he's a really good football player. Cedric's going to play in the NFL. And Kamen very well could play in the NFL because he's just a damn good football player. So, again, star ratings are what they are. Class of 2021, Deana, 19 signees, 8 left, 11 retained, no medicals in that group, 11 four-star kids. The guys who left, Dontavius Nash, who was the first commit in that class, Ra Dilworth, who was as celebrated as any of the commits, Gabe Stevens, who just never found his footing, and Keyshawn Silver, who was asked to move to offensive line and said no, and he left. So, and Ra was kind of, you're not really a Power 5 linebacker. So I think that it's interesting when you look at the two of the guys that left there in Dilworth and Silver. Most fans probably figured there's no way they would ever leave, that they love Carolina.
Yeah.
They were such great recruiters for the class, such great spokesmen for the class. But in the end, this goes to show you that these are clearly personal decisions. And guys have to make the best decisions for themselves. And the two of them did. They didn't want to change positions. They wanted to get on the field and play right away. So they went elsewhere. And hopefully they'll do that. I mean, they're both really talented kids. And I think they both could have helped Carolina in other ways. But they chose to go a different path.
Yeah, they were definitely the ringleaders on the recruiting front. They were they committed early, and they were very vocal on social media, and like you stated, they were very prominent in getting this class, which was ranked number 15th. Of course, Drake May is the top player in this class. But you got some other kids that are the 4 stars. Power Eccles, who has been really good at linebacker. Gavin Blackwell, he's going to be, he got some time.
He's in the rotation. In the rotation.
And Javari Ritzy has been really, really impressive at times on the defensive line. Eli Sutton, offensive tackle. We hadn't heard much about Eli, but I think he's been mentioned this year of possibly might even.
I think he's getting close. Right now he's the number 2 at right tackle, and I think he's getting close. In fact, if any of the current, they have 6 in the rotation. They want 8. I think Eli has a shot at getting into that 8 at some point during the 2023 season. And also Bryson Nesbitt in that group. So they actually did pretty well. And
DeAndre Boykins, who I think is the star in the secondary. And how well I thought of Bryson Nesbitt. But that group, that group sticking around.
And they still have a chance. They should all be better.
Yeah.
They should all be better this year.
They're just getting their feet wet, kind of.
I think this is a big year for Ritzy. Ritzy needs to flash all those tools and do it on a more consistent basis. They need him to be consistent here, not consistent here. And he's got the potential to be that guy. If he's consistent here, then he becomes a verifiable NFL prospect. If he's consistent here, good college player, but maybe not a great NFL prospect. He's got NFL specs. Smart guy, he's athletic, His body strong. He's got all the inherent abilities that a really good player who's an NFL prospect would have. He just needs to sort of complete the deal this fall. So this will be a really, really big year for him. 2022, not as much activity because it's still a fairly new group. 17 signees, only one left. That was just recent here with Bryson Jennings. 16 have stayed. They had 2 5-star kids and 8 4-stars. And what's interesting is the 2 5-stars, Travis Shaw, he's gotten some run at tackle. He's going to play more this year. He's dropped a lot of weight. Big time positive vibes about him coming out of spring practice. The other 5 being Zach Rice, who is not yet in the rotation. And I mentioned Eli Sutton about getting closer to that rotation. I'm not sure Zach is as close. I think Zach still has a ways to go. And people that want to dump on the staff or dump on Zach, pump the brakes on that crap. Give the kid time. Everybody has their own process in life and certainly in sports. Give Zach time to allow his process to play out. And the talent is there to be an outstanding football player at some point. He's not there yet, but that doesn't mean he's not going to get there. Let it play itself out. So Bryson Jennings is the only one that left, Deana. And yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise, but at the same time, when you looked at that room, he kind of got leapfrogged a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you look at some of those guys, Andre Green, he battled back injury, didn't get a lot of playing time, saw what he could do against Oregon, had a touchdown catch, and just a little glimpse of possible what he may bring to the table. Omarion Hampton and George Pettaway, they're good running backs. Hampton had some fumbling issues that might have caused him to kind of fall behind Elijah
reading
Green.
the hole was a little bit of an issue for Omarion as well.
And Sebastian Cheeks had an injury. Malachi Hamrick had some positive reps, and he got hurt. And so, I mean, it's just still wait and see for those guys, because like I said with the other class, they were just getting their feet wet. And another kid that's been mentioned several times, Bo Atkinson, I think he's going to get some playing time this year. So like you talked about Jennings, maybe he did see that playing time was going to be limited, and so he decided to put in for the portal and is heading to Liberty. So, I mean, you look at all the numbers. I mean, for the 4 years, Coach Brown, they signed 85 players and 50 of them stayed. And, you kind of, that's 59%. If you look all over the college football horizon, it'd be interesting to see where those numbers stand along with other Power 5 schools and stuff. So, I mean, as later on as they got in the classes, the more stayed. So, and 6 of those guys were medicals, and they're, like I said before, injuries and stuff happen, and it's kind of sad, but that's life, and you hate to include them in the numbers, but that's what happens.
Yeah, I like the stat. 3 5-stars, 31 4-stars, 19 are still in the roster. That's pretty good.
And 2 of those,
and
Sam and Josh, are in the pro. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we say a lot. I don't want to sound like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth here, that look, the rankings don't totally matter. They do matter if you accumulate another roster of 4-stars. You have a lot of talent, obviously. What we say by someone's star range don't really matter, because a lot of great players that are not even 4-stars emerge. So don't expect someone to be good just because they're a 4-star. But the benefit in piling up 4-star kids is that if half of them end up panning out are pretty good and half of them are really good, that's how you have a really good football team. So they brought in 3 5s, 31 fours. 19 of those guys are still there. 2 that went to the NFL, which is a good sign. So that means 21 of them are either in the NFL or still on the roster. So even if they haven't panned out yet, doesn't mean they're not going to pan out. And there are a lot of rosters around the country that don't have 19 4-stars on, with a couple and 2 5s. So TCU didn't. They had like 3 4-star guys when they played for the national championship. So as much as Carolina fans like to be critical of football and they literally nitpick at everything, there's a lot of talent on this roster, a lot of potential on this roster. I think the potential outweighs the talent at this point in terms of what we've seen materialize, which means if the staff can coach these guys up, and if the additions on the staff are as effective as I think they have a chance at being, suddenly we might see the Eli Suttons take that step forward, the Zach Rices take that step forward, KBJ now healthy, play like the 4-star guy. We're talking about Ritzy being consistent at this level, which he needs to be and they need him to be. That's possible now with some of these additions that they've made on the coaching staff. So if all those things happen, then suddenly Mack Brown's vision of returning the program to where it was when he left becomes far more realistic.
Yeah. And, it's still too early to say, some of the guys that have transferred out, I mean, we kind of still follow and,
Yeah.
they haven't really broke through with their other schools. And it'll be interesting to see the guys like if Silver does well at Kentucky, if Ra does in Nash. Several of them went to East Carolina.
Yeah.
See if they break
Josh Henderson.
Rotation.
Josh Henderson's been pretty solid in Indiana.
Yeah.
He's in the rotation there, and he's found a home for himself, and that's great. It wasn't working out in North Carolina. He found a place where it is. He's helped Indiana. So I think that's good. But you're right. Chaffrey Brown, Clyde Pinder, the grass hasn't been greener elsewhere for a lot of these guys. So, but they have a lot still in the program.
We'll see
I think the bigger take here is what's still there, ultimately, because why worry about what's not there?
Mm-hmm.
Focus on what is there. And quite frankly, some of the guys they lost, even some of the ones that were playing, sometimes it's best for everybody to part ways. And I think we've seen that with a few of these kids. So very interesting stuff, Deana. Very interesting stuff. We're going to continue to track this. Obviously, we'll have another full cycle next year. The 22 could be a lot of activity here in the next, really, I guess it's May now. So the portal opens up in 7 months for
the dreaded word that everybody.
I despise that word. I despise that word. I despise that word as much as anything. Wow.
For basically most sports.
Well, anyway, your piece appeared on our site here a couple of days ago, and it's fantastic work. And there's a lot more depth to the piece than what we're talking about here on this podcast. If you want access to that, and Deana in her new role now is dropping little nuggets on the board and her Deana's Dandies and stuff like that. She's really getting a great feel for the fuller landscape of recruiting, and you've got to be a premium member to get that stuff. And it's just $8.33 a month, which is, Jacob says that craft beer, and maybe I think that's probably too. Some people said that craft beer.
It's cheaper than you go to the drive-through now. I'm telling you, you go to McDonald's, Burger King. You can't beat it.
Or I was at a concert recently with my wife, and one beer is far more expensive than that at a concert. So it's just $8.33 a month. You could be a Carolina Insider too, and you get access to absolutely everything, recruiting for both sports, all of our intel, and also the dialogue in the boards. I mean, that's worth it alone. I've had people tell me, look, we love you guys. You guys are great at what you do, but I'm here for the board. So, and that's fine. We give them a place to go and give them a place to hang out with some intelligent, somewhat like-minded Carolina fans. I'm cool with that. She's Deana King. I'm AJ. This has been another Daily Drop right here on THI.